Yeah, the signs of an aging ERP are multifaceted. I mean, there's obviously things that are apparent to the end user, like a user experience. So obviously, people are familiar with a Windows interface or an HTML interface. But if you go back over the years, you would have a variety of interfaces. It would be character mode in very old days, maybe 30 years ago. The introduction of Windows gave a graphical user interface. And then moving into the web deployment, you would have also a graphical user interface, but an interface that was much more reactive to the end user manipulation of a mouse and keyboard and other features, maybe touch screens and things like that. So one of the facets that would indicate an aging ERP is that the interface isn't kept in a modern format that end users are familiar with. Now today, so many consumer products that are available have a very modern interface. And if that isn't translated into the business realm, people really see how aged it becomes, how their ERP becomes aged very, very quickly because it's not comparable to the consumer products that they're used to, number one. Number two, the technology stack that supports the underlying data structures, databases, the delivery of the data to the end user, through the interface, could be aged based on the ability to scale. It doesn't have the capability to add new companies, new employees, and a number of transactions. It becomes much more cumbersome to manage that data structure environment. Thirdly, there are so many different applications that are developed on an ongoing basis. It's impossible for an ERP to be completely comprehensive for every single aspect of every single component and function of a business. So the requirement for an ERP to be not only a system, but also a platform so that integrations and the utilization of third-party applications to interface to the ERP is paramount. So you need to have a platform that enables that interaction between the ERP and a third-party system. Very quickly, if the ability for that ERP not to be able to interface to third parties, then that would quickly indicate an aging ERP. So those are some of the major indicators of an aging ERP. Perhaps you have that experience with some of your prospects where people have complained that their systems are siloed or they can't talk to other systems or it looks aged and people can't get into it remotely or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think to what you said about the user experience, I think that's a big one, right? Because functionality is one thing, right? There's companies that are using a system that they've been using for the last 10 to 15 years, and the functionality still works. It's still doing what it's supposed to do, but it's falling behind in terms of, like you said, the user experience compared to some of the newer features and newer technologies that have been introduced to the marketplace. So I would definitely agree. I think integrating to third-party systems as well, that's an important piece. I do have recent customers that have joined CMiC for that reason, because like you said, you're not going to get everything out. You're not going to get everything in one system. So one thing that our customers, I think, I love about CMiC is most of the things that they need are going to be, within the ERP, but having that ability to integrate to third-party systems down the road, having that plan B, because they don't always know what they want in the beginning. It's really important that you have that ability. Whereas, like you said, there are some systems that are aging that you just don't have that capability, right? You don't have that capability because some of them are written in a very old programming language. They're on premise. So these are signs that it's not even going to be possible down the road to integrate to some other systems and leverage newer technologies. AI is a hot topic right now, right? If your ERP is not, if your ERP company or vendor is not thinking about those things, then it probably means it's not possible, right? These are things that are really important to ensure that you don't fall behind, right? Because the competition's doing it. So
another aspect of having an indication of an aging ERP is when the customer finds that the end user finds that they have to depend upon productivity tools that are manual, that are outside the system. So I'll give you an example. If CMiC offers an embedded forecasting tool that allows for time phasing or cash flow on a periodic basis, if another system doesn't do that, the customer will have to utilize an office productivity tool such as an Excel or other manual methods in order to extract data from wherever source that they get it from, put it into that manual environment, such as a spreadsheet, manipulate the data, and then somehow bring it back into their ERP or their accounting system in order to book a transaction or to adjust a revenue recognition or whatever the case may be. It could be time capture. It could be other analysis. If they have to dump data out of their system in order to do any particular analysis of the data so that it's meaningful. If they have to do that more and more, and they're working in spreadsheets and that are not auditable and they're not secure and they're exposed to unauthorized potential users or potential eyes on those data sets, then that is a major indicator that the ERP is aging and not capable of accomplishing the functionality that you would seek in a comprehensive ERP system that is keeping up with the times. Another indicator where an ERP or a vendor is not keeping up with their technology stack and the ERP is aging is that if they're not providing regular updates to their system, it means that they're living dead. What that means by living dead is that they've made the investment in their platform and they're just living in that mode without investing additional R&D or any other investment into the platform so that additional functionality, additional capability is going to be provided to the end user. So when a vendor doesn't supply and provide regular updates to their system, whether it be annually, biannually, or quarterly, whatever the case may be, in a SaaS platform, it's normal or accepted that updates are available at least biannually. And if that's not occurring, then that is another indicator that the ERP is aging quickly.
Yeah, that's a good point. I actually have a good example of that here. We had a recent client, success story. They originally came to CMiC to kind of look at project management solutions, specifically for that area of the business. They evaluated 4 or 5 different systems. They ended up deciding that CMiC was their number one pick. And then during the sales process, kind of asked them, well, what about accounting? What are you going to do with your accounting system? And the guy said, oh, well, it works fine. It's doing what it's supposed to do. And I said, well, knowing what system it is, I kind of said, well, what are you going to do when they discontinue support, when it kind of becomes obsolete? And I don't think they really thought about that. And I don't know if they really believed me. They kind of said, well, there's no firm date. There's no, that hasn't been communicated to them by the vendor. I said, well, are they developing? Are they still investing? Are they still putting money into the product and adding new features? To which they responded, no. So I think during that conversation, a light bulb went off in their head and really made them realize that they should look at replacing it. And they did. So,
yeah. Well, one thing that CMiC prides itself in specifically is that we invest about 20% of our annual revenue into what we call R&D or unfunded development. That is a tremendous investment that is organically raised. It's not money that we take from a third party or a venture capitalist or any other type of source. So that is definitely directly from our revenue, and that continuous investment enables us to propel the product into a current state where it's far beyond our competition, where we're able to provide, the user experience that our customers are expecting, we're able to provide the scalability for them to grow without having to reinvest in another ERP as they grow, because there's no limitation from that perspective. And they have the comfort that as technology evolves, some of the topics that we already talked about, for instance, application protocol interfaces, or people call APIs, or web services that enable the integration between third-party applications and the ERP platform, or artificial intelligence, which is something that we're just scratching the surface in terms of its capabilities. But if that ERP vendor is not providing any R&D or any initiative in it to explore how that's going to affect the end user experience and how that will completely change the dynamic between systems and data and the end user, that will be a clear indication where an ERP platform is aging very, very quickly. CMiC has always prided itself in I would say, an academic perspective of managing a software company. We're always in the quest of doing more, doing better, and keeping ahead of what is available in the marketplace. We've never rested on our laurels. We invest about 20% of our total annual revenue in R&D or unfunded development every single year. That's not only in feature and function, but also in technology. And so that enables CMiC to provide a bold user interface that customers are used to using and are wanting to use, because they're relating to the consumer products that are out there, and it has to apply to their business experience as well. Two, when they want to invest in an ERP platform, they want to invest in that platform once in their career. They don't want to have to buy an ERP this year and in 10 years or 5 years invest in another ERP. Implementing an ERP is a very difficult thing, and it's a big challenge. I liken it to say that implementing an ERP is more like changing an engine during a race rather than changing the tires during a race. So it's a very, very complicated and involved effort. And so that if you could provide the assurance to your customers that this is going to be the last ERP that they're going to invest in because their vendor is going to take care of them for a number of ways, that the technology is current, the scalability is infinite, and the functionality is going to be available for their industry, then that's the comfort that needs to be provided. And in order for us to provide that communication to our customer base, we have a number of vehicles. We have portals such as User Voice, where our customers can go in and generate their requests of desired functionality or desired technology that they want to see in the product. It's a collaborative forum where anybody can go, any one of our customers can go in and submit their requests. We accumulate these requests, and we consider all these requests as suggestions for what we're going to provide in an R&D fashion in the next year or the next couple of years. We also have an enterprise customer advisory board where a number of our largest customers, our 15 largest customers, most of them are over $1 billion in annual revenue. They come together biannually, and we come and discuss what our plans are for the upcoming near future, and we take their advice, and they opine into our proposals and our presentations in terms of how best to proceed. Sometimes they consult with us on security matters. Sometimes it's about feature and function. Sometimes it's about areas that we need to be concerned about, whether with respect to competition or the market forces or investments or acquisitions in the space. And they've been very, very helpful to us in terms of how we've been able to steer the company on an ongoing basis. And then we have our customer conferences. We have our user community, which we call CMiC Users Group, or CMUG. and that we have quarterly workshops with our customers that are topical. We have an annual conference where our customers come together and they meet, and it's a very familial type of environment. Not only is it a good time, but it's also a time for people to have peer-to-peer network connections, and they could compare their experiences utilizing CMiC as the substrate of their discussions. And so we have all these mechanisms put in place so that we could deliver, good product, current product, and forward-thinking product to our customers.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely think to your point about the reinvestment into the company's research and development, I think that's huge. Not a lot of companies are making that kind of reinvestment into the product. It really speaks to the commitment that CMiC has for this product, right? And the one thing I love about our customer conferences, to your point, is there's no selling that happens there. It is strictly a customer learning as well as a networking event. So just being there, it's something that you have to kind of experience for yourself. And I think it's really important, right? Because because we don't have multiple products that we're selling, it's just strictly focused on bettering the product, strengthening the relationships with our customers, and also growing that ecosystem.
To ensure the continuity of CMiC for the medium and long term, since I already mentioned that we don't take investments from third party, we don't have a venture capital, we don't have any publicly traded entity that owns CMiC. It's a privately held company. So to ensure that we have sustainability for the long term and for the medium term, of course, but for the long term, is that we have to continuously penetrate markets that enable us to sell our systems frequently and even more so, because we continuously have a certain amount of growth that we expect and we need to provide to our shareholders every single year. So one way to do that is to expand the market space. One of our traditional market space has been general contractors, and of recent times, with the past 5-10 years, we've expanded into self-performing contractors and specialty contractors as well in North America and Canada. In addition to that, in order to expand the market space, what we're going to do and what we are doing is expanding geographically as well. So we've had an opportunity to expand into the UAE and the Middle East, where we've had, on an opportunity basis, been very successful in entering into partnerships with very large general contractors and specialty contractors in that region. We've delivered CMiC software and have gone live in those regions. And we've had to accommodate the certain localization requirements to accommodate the business functional requirements in those regions. We're going to expand to further regions, such as Europe and Australia. And these enable the continuity and the continued growth of CMiC for the long term. That gives our customer base a tremendous amount of confidence that we have the long-term thinking in order to sustain the product and the support and the ability to expand the system and its functionality to those markets.
One company in particular that I'm thinking about came to us using multiple systems. Their accounting system was very antiquated. It was a system that we don't actually encounter very often because it was that old, and they had other systems in place to try to accommodate what this system was lacking. So they had a system for accounting, which was the antiquated legacy system. They had a time capture system in order to have time captured in the field. And then they had a project management system so that the project managers had some sort of technology to manage their projects. Now, the problem is that their ERP system did not communicate with the other systems. So there was a ton of work still being done in Excel spreadsheets. There was imports that were having to be done, right? from the time capture system to the ERP and then back to the project management system. So they had other systems as well, but this is really just speaking to the fact that they had all these systems. As their needs changed, so as they were evolving, their needs changed, and they kept adding on systems. But at the end of the day, none of these systems spoke to each other. So that's why they came to CMiC, so that they didn't have to worry about Excel. They didn't have to do imports, and they didn't have to worry about duplicate effort, right? One of the things that they love about CMiC is the fact that they can do their time capture right inside of CMiC and have that hit the payroll and also record a job cost to their projects immediately in real time. And then they use the analytics tool to see that in real time. So that is a really good success story. It's something that we encounter very often.
Yeah, that's a very common story. We oftentimes go into opportunities and we find that they're using anywhere between 5 and 15 systems to do whatever they need to do. Sometimes very minor function requirements, sometimes something a little bit more robust. They'll use Excel to do the revenue recognition. They'll use another application to do time capture, as you mentioned. They'll do another tool. They'll take the data out of the system and use some kind of analytics tool. They will have an accounting system. They'll have a separate project management system, manage drawings. They'll take spec books and import them into their project management system using yet another tool. All those features and functions are available in one single database platform called CMiC. And one throat to choke, so to speak, to have a customer know that all their data is normalized and available on a single platform, such as CMiC, gives a lot of comfort to knowing that the data is integral and atomic and appears only once in the entire system. One of the stories that I could share, and I've been doing this for many, many decades, is one of our early customers, and they shared the vision that CMiC provided in terms of having everything on a single platform. They were running a variety of systems. This is talking about the days of the early mid-90s, 1990s, that is. And the CFO at the time had a shared vision that we were propagating, and we successfully implemented CMiC at their company. They were a $300 million annual turnover a year company. Subsequently, very shortly thereafter, and of course we want to take all the credit, but I think that we were just a mechanism so that they could facilitate their growth, but they doubled in size, and today they are over $1 billion in annual turnover. One thing that is noted, however, from a customer success perspective, they were able to scale without adding any G&A or general conditions and administration costs. So they were adding additional staff because they had more projects, more project managers required, more people working on their projects, of course, but those are revenue generating personnel. But they didn't add one person to support these revenue generating personnel. In fact, they cut their accounts payable department in half in order to support their massive expansion. Another success story that I'd like to share is was that we were at a trade show a year or two ago, and a company who had just implemented a very large company, their users came by and they said, well, we weren't part of the selection of CMiC, but we were part of the company before CMiC. And they just readily admitted to us it's beyond their imagination how they existed prior to having CMiC in their realm. It's so integral to their daily life. When they come to work, this is what they do. They don't have to spend so much time on their personal time in order to just fill the holes and plug the damage that a non-integrated system provides, that they have to supplement on their personal time or do off-hour work in order to get the information and get the right decisions in place, because CMiC provides all that in real time. And so the fact that they couldn't imagine life prior to CMiC was just such an imposing picture in our mind that I don't know how we existed. It's sort of like a kid coming up to you and says, like, how did you exist with a rotary phone? Or how did you exist without the internet? Or how did you exist without, a smartphone? Whatever the case may be, if you can't imagine how people existed beforehand, and the tool that is enabling them to survive and to exist in a happy medium is CMiC, is very gratifying.
Yeah, I think it's very important. Those are some great stories. Another thing that I always tell companies that encounter us during the sales process is, look at systems that are going to meet your requirements 5, 10 years, 15 years down the road. A lot of short-term focused decisions are often cause increased spend in the long term, having to train, retrain, and look at new systems and do this all over again. So I think a lot of those companies that have shared the vision of CMiC, they're long-term focused, but so are we in terms of developing the product and so on. But I would say the bolt-on approach, where they have a pain, they add on a system. They have another pain, they add on another system. Eventually you get to a point where you're like, we need something that's just going to solve the pains, right? And have everything under one umbrella. And I think CMiC is the place for a lot of contractors in that regard.
Yeah. So what are the things that are many things that we're looking forward to in order to activate within the CMiC software platform? There are a lot of, I would say, blue sky projects that we're considering. One of them is utilization of 3D models. Right now, in order to actuate a construction project, you need drawings, and they're in 2 dimensions. Generally, they're on pieces of paper, or they're in PDFs, whatever the case may be, whether they're digital or not. And they are in 2D. However, we live in a 3D world. And in order to really deliver a project with understanding every single aspect of the area that is being worked on, the mechanical, the electrical, the concrete, the plumbing, whatever the case may be, a 3D model is superior to a 2D environment. Very trained people would be able to take a look at a 2-dimensional environment and be able to translate that into reality. But a 3D model is much more superior. And that has been slow to be utilized into the construction realm in terms of, it's great for selling, look at the 3D model and this is what it's going to look like, but to actually use the model on a continuous basis to measure productivity, to understand where there's a clash detection, or whether the quantity put in place is registered on the model. That will reduce a tremendous amount of uncertainty in the delivery of a project. The number of change orders or variations that are rampant in the construction delivery will be minimized greatly. And people will have much more certainty in terms of delivering. So to be able to incorporate a BIM model into the platform is something that we're really working on and going to be delivering that very, very shortly. None of our ERP competitors are doing that at this time. Another thing is something that we talked about quite extensively is the utilization of artificial intelligence. There's different aspects of artificial intelligence, large language models that could automate certain features and functions, but it's the implementation of AI in the construction-specific business process is going to be what separates CMiC from all others. And that is going to revolutionize the way that people interact with systems. Some examples that we can give is how AI could generate analytics, of course. That's low-hanging fruit. Predictive analytics based on certain key performance indicators. How many RFIs been generated will indicate whether this project might be successful or not, or whether it's on the cost code or whether at the project level. Whether the spend per period on a particular project is more or less than a common spread or spend on a different project that is similar to the current project, so that you have comparisons. You can have predictive analytics. You can have workflows that are generative based on language. So based on natural language. Right now, in order to create a workflow, You would have to predict what the business process is going to be. Okay, a standard workflow, let's say a P invoice comes in. If it's over, if it's to this project, X person is going to have to approve the expense. If it's over a certain amount of money, certain value, then it gets escalated to a different person who has a more authority to approve that kind of invoice, et cetera, et cetera. But and that has to be predetermined in order to actuate a electrification of a business process. But if you could just talk it and express it verbally about how I want, for this project, I want an invoice to go to the project manager, the project accountant, and then be escalated to a project manager. And then if it's over $5,000, it goes to X person. And if it's over $10,000, it goes to a third person. And when they're on vacation, it should go to another person. And if it's rejected, it should be pushed back to the vendor. And all I have to do is express that verbally, and the workflow will be actuated and implemented into the system. That is something that AI could do. Or a sentiment value. For instance, every day, a project manager or a superintendent writes a daily journal in terms of what happened on the project that day. Today was raining. We couldn't get the 50 feet of pipe installed because we hit a rock or whatever. We had to remove an impediment or an obstacle. Whatever the case may be. These are narratives that are daily logged into a daily journal. If you have many, many, many projects, and if AI could, and it does, scour the narrative and understand the sentiment of those narratives, then we can have an early indicator whether the project is going to be successful or not based on the sentiment of the daily log. And every single day there's another log, another log, another log, and the sentiment could be extracted from the narrative. These are just some small little projects that we're working on, but they are differentiating CMiC greatly from any other company that we're aware of at this point in time.
Yeah, AI is one that I think I'm really excited about personally. I've already gotten used to using like ChatGPT to write emails and that sort of thing. So I think having that embedded into the analytics portion of CMiC is going to be a game changer. I was a past CFO at a construction company before joining CMiC, so I know what it takes to build reports, to build dashboards. It can be challenging, right? So having that, leveraging that technology to just talk with your ERP and build those reports using AI is definitely going to be a game changer.
Right. And I'm sure in your role as a CFO, you would always want to know, which vendors, are billing in excess of their purchase order.
Right.
Or which are my customers that are yielding the greatest margin. And you would have to predictively understand or want to know that in advance to write a report to see that,
right,
or sort or filter or extract the data, do some kind of manipulation, as opposed to just asking the ERP saying, hey, could you show me the 5 customers that yield the greatest margin? And then the system would go ahead and provide that.
Absolutely.
Without having to understand the data model, the schema. It's actually quite remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every company has their standard reports that they run every month or every week or every year. But then there's the one-offs, right? It's the situational events that happen. They might have a project that's running very poorly, or it's going over budget, and they want a specific report to identify what happened with that project. So I think that's where it could come in handy.